Hello everyone, this is Fred DeBerg from Spotlight Dance Arts Online, and this is another episode of Fred Talk. Today I get to talk to Frankie DeBerg, my son, and it is wonderful to see him. He's been so busy that I haven't gotten to see him. Frankie, thank you for joining me.
Of course.
All right, for those of you who don't know, Spotlight Dance Arts actually closed on Broadway because of COVID-19, and Frankie has been doing some different things. What have you been doing with your time?
Oh, well, let's see.
Where are you working?
I work at a hotel in town. I work as the overnight person, the night auditor.
So what is that like?
Mostly pretty calm. Pretty calm.
Pretty calm.
For the most part, you might see a dozen or so people in the night. And for the most part, it's really just people who at like 3 a.m. decided that they were really craving the Doritos that are just there right next to the front desk.
Now, a lot of you don't know Frankie greatly or know him really well. What some of you may not know is Frankie is an amazing writer. Now, when do you think you really started being interested in writing?
I was 5 years old.
You were 5 years old?
One of the first things that I ever did, because I was very proud that I had written a sentence. And so I had taken this sentence to my parents and just been like, look, I wrote something. And it was the proudest moment. And that was the moment I was like, yeah, I like this. And then just an overactive imagination from there, and just, I never looked back.
Well, Frankie, you've always been great at acting, and you've always been great at writing. Now, you have written a lot of scripts for Spotlight Dance.
The first one that I wrote all the way through was The World's Gone Crazy.
Right, that's right.
The show that we did where the main character had a coping mechanism where he hallucinated
and had an imaginary friend.
And had an imaginary friend who I played opposite my best friend, Patrick Gates.
That's true.
So I wrote that one.
You've written camps for me.
Yeah.
You've written scripts for that. You wrote a script that actually got you into a college.
It's true. I wrote The Suitcase, which was a short script that was an allegory about forgiving other people.
And how not forgiving them weighs you down or holds you back.
It's the parable of the guy who owed 100 silver and then was forgiven, but then went out and bugged the guy who owed him like 10.
Yeah.
And
by the way, it's an amazing script. It's a really good story.
And it was just the fact that you won't forgive someone else who has wronged you will, in the end, it will just end up hurting you.
Exactly.
So
one of my favorite shows that you wrote was A Work in Progress.
Yes.
That was the 2-person show you did.
Yes.
That was great. You and Patrick's interaction was just absolutely hysterical.
It was a beautiful thing to do.
We got to bring that back. One of these days, we got to bring it back.
We should, yeah.
You know, that was really good.
I might rework it a little bit, stuff that I've learned about my writing style that it's developed. Everything develops over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, now in your writing, now you guys may not know this as well. Frankie is an amazing writer for things like Dungeons and Dragons. Ooh. So he comes up with the whole scenario of what the world of Dungeons and Dragons is like, and I am so excited to talk to him about that. You know, the arts take so many forms.
Sure. And
Dungeons and Dragons, not something that I know a lot about, so that's why he's here. Yep. Frankie, what got you started in Dungeons and Dragons?
So this was after I had gone away to college for a year.
Then you came back.
Yeah, I came back. I was struggling with some mental health issues, depression, anxiety, and I came back home and I started going to community college instead, which was a great experience, and I definitely need to go back. But
You heard it, ladies and gentlemen.
you heard it here. You heard it here first. But I was at community college, and I had a few friends, including Raina.
Okay.
And they were talking about how they were getting a group of people together to play D&D over at a friend's house. And I just chimed in and I went, D&D? And instantly I was hooked. Raina was the DM, or the Dungeon Master, which is...
Raina was?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which is now the position that I most typically take up.
And it's called the Dungeon Master?
Dungeon Master. So basically the game works in this certain way, where you have the players who are all characters, fantasy characters of different races, fantasy races, like humans, elves, dwarves, that kind of thing. Think Lord of the Rings kind of characters. And these characters are being portrayed by the players, and they have statistics that are based on the mechanics of the game that kind of help us figure out what this character is like, what they're good at, what they're not so good at. And I, or Raina in our first game, as the Dungeon Master, comes up with the world and the general story of...
So you literally create a whole environment, you create a world, you create... do you even do, like, does it have governing factors to it, everything like that?
Oh, of course it does. I love putting together every facet of all of my settings.
Well, can I tell you, knowing you and knowing how detailed you are, he is really detailed in his writings, ladies and gentlemen.
My players have recently just gone, oh, everything's connected. I'm like, yes.
Everything is connected. You have backstories and you have, oh my goodness.
So the idea is the players come in with their character. Mm-hmm. They have their backstory, they have all the details about this character.
And like you said, maybe special qualities
they have
powers
abilities, and it's all based on the mechanics. And I won't get bogged down in the mechanics. I don't even get bogged down in the mechanics when I run the game. I'm just like, okay, yeah, you roll a die and you add that.
Because it's still a game. Yeah, and it can maneuver in all different ways.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people, they purchase these scenarios, but you actually write your own scenarios.
Yes. So there are two different types of campaigns, and they're all called campaigns because it all goes back to the origins of Dungeons and Dragons, which originally was created by a bunch of nerds who liked war games.
I see.
So when you have a war game, when you're acting out a specific battle, it's called a campaign. But they just went, what if we had like dragons? And like instead of being like an entire army, you're just one guy.
I see.
And you really focus on that one guy. And so they call them campaigns, and there's two ways to run a campaign. There is the module, which basically goes back to D&D's roots, where basically they would sell these little booklets, where it's you have a setting, you have a general plot, here's how this adventure works.
Right.
And it'll give you characters, it'll give you the story, everything that you need to run it. Mm-hmm. But what I do is called homebrewing, which is basically I sit down and I make the world myself, and it gives me a lot of freedom. And that's one of the things I love about it so much.
Right.
Because I can just come up with something, and it's real now.
Right. Well, and then that goes back to you when you were 5 years old.
Yeah.
You know, how you were able to create incredible scenarios at a very early age. And so having D&D as an outlet, has it been amazing?
It's so good. And one of the things that I love the most about D&D, and it actually reminds me of when I would write scripts for Spotlight. Mm-hmm. When I would write scripts for Spotlight, you would often come to me with a bunch of
dance
numbers. And I would have to figure out a way that they all fit together into a story.
See, I was training you.
Exactly. So the thing is, in D&D, all my players will come in and go, here's my backstory. And I look at all of them, and I'm like, how do we get these characters to go together and set them in the world and have a campaign that can involve portions of their backstory?
That brings up the podcast.
Yes.
So you just recently started that. Now, did that begin because of COVID, or did it begin?
No.
Was it something that you were working on?
So I had decided, because I saw a lot of people doing it online, I had started on TikTok. This is actually where this begins.
Oh, okay.
I had started on TikTok, and I started as a consumer of content, so I was just on there and I would watch the occasional video, and then I saw this huge and thriving Dungeons and Dragons community on there.
On TikTok?
Yeah, on TikTok.
By the way, he's hysterical on TikTok. You gotta check him out.
But I saw this community on TikTok and I went, this I can drive. I was on a person's channel who had, like, at the time, 80,000 followers.
Oh my.
And I just typed a comment. And he responded. And this was actually the first person that I invited to the podcast. In fact, it was his idea. He was the one who was like, hey, I'd really like to play D&D with you sometime. I'm like, that would be a good idea. He's like, we should do it as a podcast. I'm like, that would be a good idea.
Right. Well, now, the other thing that's great about all the access that you have on the internet, online, is that you get to connect with people from all over the place.
All over the place, yeah.
And all these people come in and they play your game?
Yes.
Or your...
Yes. So for the podcast, which is called Roll for Chaos, which you can find
Roll for Chaos.
Wherever you listen to your podcasts. That's the bit I always do. Roll for Chaos, it's my game, but it's also based on a module.
Oh, okay.
So for that one, just because I was nervous at the time, I was like, I'll just stick to a module for now.
So you had the base and you added the ingredients.
Oh, I have since then completely gone off the rails.
Oh, cool.
Because I can't not.
So let's rewind a little bit and let's talk about the podcast. So how can a person be listen to the podcast, get involved with the podcast? How does that work?
So the podcast, you can listen on anywhere you listen to your podcasts. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. There's one other one that I keep forgetting. But you can listen to it there. Start from the beginning, go through. We're on episode...
So tell them again the name of your podcast.
Roll for Chaos. We're involved with a group called Common Unity Media.
Oh, okay.
One of our players started a podcast group where they have several podcasts that are all a part of our lineup, and it's really cool. We have a group Patreon where you can get extra content from the various shows.
So what I'm getting from you is this: so people that are interested in acting,
yes,
people that are interested in developing characters, doing all kinds of things, D&D might be something that you want to check out.
Oh yeah. For people who like acting, writing, and just general fantasy topics.
Which is the main reason that I wanted to interview you, because arts, like I said, take on so many characteristics and so many different forms. Now, another thing happened recently.
Yeah.
I gained a daughter-in-law.
Yes, you did.
Know that.
I was on online dating for about 2 years. And I was dating around, talking to people, getting to know people, Never really found anyone that I really connected with that much. And then Karen was on for 2 days.
2 days?
2 days. And I found her, messaged her, and I was like, hi! And we got to talking. She was talking about how she was studying to be a teacher at SDSU, and we connected, and we had our first date. And I immediately went to every other person I was talking to at the time, and I went, I'm good.
So you continued the relationship. And,
yes.
For those of you who don't know, they were engaged to be married on March the 26th. Of course, you know that COVID-19 occurred, and March 19th we closed my studio. For them, they had to not get married on March 26th, which was a very big disappointment.
Yes, it was.
So, tell them why you got married.
So, instead, we were debating for a really long time. Do we just get married? Do we have someone just officiate and just do it? Or do we wait for the actual ceremony? Karen was very set on waiting for the actual ceremony for the longest time. And then one day we both were just like, you know what? We don't want to wait anymore.
Good.
We're sure about this, and we can have the ceremony later.
Now, you didn't tell us right off the bat that
No.
you got married,
No.
which was a little interesting.
I eloped.
Yes.
But I eloped with my fiance of 3 years. But we ended up asking Alicia, my sister, to officiate. And
Which is really nice.
She got the online minister form and all that, and we went to the Panda Express, literally right around the corner from here, where it was our first date. And
I think that's really cool. I think it's really neat.
We weren't allowed in because of COVID, but we stood outside, and Alicia officiated the wedding. And we got a few pictures.
And you got food.
And we got food. We got food. And then we posted about it online. And this is actually really fun. We posted about it online on Twitter. And the Panda Express official Twitter account went, hey, that's really cool that you celebrated with us. You want some food? And they just sent us.
And you're like, yeah.
They said it was a meal for 3. And they sent us like
a lot more food than that.
20 to-go boxes with just every side, every main item, and a few of the specialty items too. And I was like,
that's so nice.
It was really cool.
So great.
And it was a real high point of this terrible, terrible year.
It's been really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I was thrilled to find out that you got married, even though we didn't get to see it.
Well, you know what?
There wasn't a lot to see.
See, there wasn't. And if we told you, we would have had to tell her parents, and then the list would have just grown, and we definitely would have been over the 9-person limit.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Frankie, thank you for taking the time. You know I love you.
I love you too.
And this has been fun. I wanted people to get to know you a little bit more because you've been doing a lot of different things. A lot of people that love you have been asking, what's up with Frankie? So, ladies and gentlemen, he's been doing a lot of stuff with podcasts, D&D, as you can tell.
Yeah.
This has been fun. This has been fun. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this episode of Fred Talk. Again, my name is Fred DeBerg, and remember to keep the arts alive in San Diego. God bless.